The plate hit the table with a dull finality, and Marisol Vega already knew what it meant before she even looked down. The biker was gone. The chair scraped back, the bell over the diner door had chimed, and the space where he sat felt colder somehow. Her eyes dropped to the receipt, and her chest tightened. A zero, not a blank, not forgotten, a deliberate, unmistakable zero written with a heavy hand. In that moment, under the bright daytime glare of the diner windows, with coffee still steaming and plates clattering around her, Marisol felt the sharp, familiar sting of being invisible again. If you believe that kindness still matters in a world that often feels hard and unfair, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel Only Kindness. Your support helps keep stories like this alive, stories about second chances and unexpected grace. Marisol stood there longer than she meant to, holding the receipt between her fingers like it might burn her. The diner was full, the lunch rush already rolling in with its chorus of orders and impatience, but her mind stalled on that single table by the window. The man had come in late morning, sunlight flashing off the chrome of his motorcycle as he parked out front. He wore black leather faded by years of road and weather, his back marked with a worn Hell Angel patch that drew looks from regulars who pretended not to stare. He had not smiled, had not complained either, just eaten slowly, deliberately, as if each bite carried weight. Marisol had treated him like she treated everyone else, with quiet politeness, refilling his coffee before it was empty, clearing plates without rushing him, even though time was money and tips were survival. Survival had been her reality for 3 long years now, ever since the factory on the edge of town closed and her husband vanished shortly after, leaving behind silence, unpaid bills, and a toddler who still cried at night for a father who never came back. Daytime shifts at the diner were the only hours that made sense with school schedules and daycare costs. Marisol learned to stretch pennies, to turn leftovers into meals, to smile even when her feet ached and her heart felt threadbare. Tips paid for groceries, tips covered bus passes and notebooks and the occasional treat that made her son Mateo's eyes light up. A zero tip was not just an insult, it was a missing piece of their fragile balance. She slid the receipt into her apron with a practiced motion, telling herself not to dwell on it. People judged by appearances all the time, and sometimes they punished others for their own bad days. Still, as she reached for the plate to clear it, something caught her eye. The plate was heavier than it should have been, not with food, but with intention. Beneath it, tucked just out of sight, was a folded piece of thick paper, pressed flat against the table as if carefully placed there. Her breath caught. She glanced around, feeling oddly self-conscious, then lifted the plate fully and slipped the paper into her apron without opening it. The rest of the shift blurred into a rhythm of orders and refills, sunlight shifting across the floor as the day moved on. Marisol tried not to think about the paper against her side, but it felt like a secret humming through her veins. What if it was nothing? What if it was a joke, or worse, a note meant to hurt? Experience had taught her not to hope too quickly. Hope had a way of making disappointment sharper. When the lunch rush faded and the diner settled into its early afternoon lull, Marisol finally allowed herself a moment. She retreated to the narrow space near the storage shelves, the smell of cleaning supplies mixing with coffee grounds. With hands that trembled more than she wanted to admit, she unfolded the paper. What she saw made her knees weaken. It was not a note at first glance, but a check. A real one, thick and official, with an amount written that made her heart stutter. $1,000, payable to Marisol Vega, dated that very day. Beneath it, written in firm, uneven handwriting, were words that seemed almost out of place on something so formal. It said that some debts are not paid with money on the table, and some kindnesses deserve privacy. It said that people see more than they let on. It said thank you for treating a stranger like a human being. Marisol pressed a hand to her mouth, the room tilting slightly as tears blurred her vision. $1,000 was more than she made in 2 weeks. It was rent security, groceries without anxiety, shoes for Mateo whose toes were already pressing against worn fabric. It was relief she had not allowed herself to imagine. She sank onto a crate, the check clutched to her chest, and let herself cry silently, daylight spilling in through a high window as dust motes danced in the air. The name at the bottom of the check belonged to Rowan Pike. She learned that name later, piece by piece, as the story unfolded beyond that single act. Rowan Pike had been riding since he was barely out of his teens, carrying scars that no one at the diner could see. He had lost his sister years before, a single mother like Marisol, crushed by circumstances that did not care how hard she tried. Rowan had watched her struggle, watched her pride keep her from asking for help, watched the world pass her by. Guilt had become his shadow. When he sat in that diner, watching Marisol juggle tables with tired grace, noticing the way she smiled at her son's drawing taped behind the counter, something in him had cracked open. He had seen his sister there, not in her face, but in her effort. The zero on the receipt had been intentional, not cruel. Rowan believed that true giving did not seek applause. He did not want a reaction in the room, did not want to be thanked or judged. He wanted the gift to be found quietly, to land softly in the hands of someone who needed it without spectacle. Leaving it under the plate was his way of disappearing from the moment, letting the kindness belong entirely to Marisol. For Marisol, the days that followed felt unreal. She took the check to the bank on her day off, half expecting it to be rejected, her stomach in knots as the teller disappeared into the back office. When the funds were confirmed, she walked out into the bright afternoon sun and laughed out loud for the first time in months. The world looked different with the weight lifted, colors sharper, air lighter. She paid her rent early. She bought Mateo new shoes and a backpack with a space design that made him spin in circles. She stocked the pantry without counting every item twice. But more than the money, it was the message that changed her. The idea that someone had seen her, truly seen her, without needing praise, settled into her bones. She began to move through her days differently, shoulders a little straighter, patience a little deeper. She started leaving small notes of encouragement on receipts for customers who looked tired. She covered meals quietly for elderly regulars on fixed incomes when she could. Kindness, she realized, was not a finite resource. It multiplied when shared. Weeks later, on another bright afternoon, the rumble of a motorcycle outside the diner made Marisol look up from pouring coffee. The same bike, unmistakable. The same leather jacket, the Hell Angel patch worn smooth by miles. Rowan Pike walked in, slower this time, as if unsure whether he belonged. Marisol's heart raced, but she kept her composure. She served him, like any other customer, with calm professionalism, though gratitude burned behind her eyes. He ate quietly, sunlight tracing the lines of his face. When he stood to leave, he paused for a fraction of a second, meeting her gaze. No words passed between them. None were needed. There was a nod, small and respectful, an acknowledgement that carried more weight than conversation ever could. Rowan left a normal tip that day, nothing extravagant, nothing symbolic. The real exchange had already happened. Life did not become perfect for Marisol overnight. Struggles did not vanish. Bills still came, days still got long, exhaustion still crept in. But something fundamental had shifted. She no longer felt alone in the fight. She told Mateo stories about how kindness could come from unexpected places, how people were more than their outer shells. She taught him to hold doors open, to say thank you, to believe that good deeds mattered even when no one was watching. Word of the biker who left a zero tip and a hidden miracle never spread through the diner. It remained a quiet story, held close to Marisol's heart, shaping the way she moved through the world. Rowan continued to ride, carrying his own ghosts, but lighter now, knowing he had honored his sister's memory in the only way that felt right. Two lives had intersected briefly in the daylight of an ordinary diner, and both had been changed. As the seasons turned and the sun traced new paths across the windows, Marisol sometimes caught herself glancing at that table by the window, remembering the weight of the plate, the folded paper beneath it, the moment everything tilted toward hope. She understood now that kindness did not always announce itself. Sometimes it whispered, sometimes it hid under a plate, waiting to be discovered by someone who desperately needed to believe. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion still exists in quiet, powerful ways, please take a moment now to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Only Kindness. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who may need a reminder that they are seen. Before we end, we have one special request for you. Please leave a comment sharing a moment when unexpected kindness changed your life, or simply write the word kindness if you believe the world needs more of it. Because somewhere, in the middle of an ordinary day, under the weight of an unremarkable plate, a small act of humanity can change everything.